This segment of the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast is supported in part by Douglas Outdoors, serious rods for serious anglers. Go to douglasoutdoors.com and check out their new lineup of Era rods that retail under $100. Norsk Lithium, the lithium battery that you need is just a click away. Go to norsklithium.com and check out some of the lightest lithium batteries in the market with the best warranty in the business. Mariner Sales, located in the heart of the DFW Metroplex, Mariner Sales has the largest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories in North Texas. You can also shop online at marinersales.com. Hope you all having a great day. Give me 1 second here. I'm stumbling out of the block here. Welcome to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. This is a real life with your boy Armando. And just to give you a heads up, today is going to be one of those days I feel like I'm going to forget my guest names. I'm going to lose my train of thoughts. I am going to lose track of what my guests are saying. I'm not going to have a reply that makes sense because I went fishing really, really early today. Went on a white bass run, moving up. They're starting to move up to Denton Creek. And they're not quite yet that. You see, this is what I'm telling you. They're not quite there yet. And we did like a 2-mile hike. Like we were going through the woods. I didn't take my kayak with me. It was just like bank fishing, going from one spot to another, just hiking and going through the woods, crossing through railroads, highways, all that. It was pretty fun. I do it every year. It just feels awesome. Feels like like a kid again. But it's tiring, and so very little sleep last night. So yeah, very tired. But show must go on, and today we're gonna have a great guest. We got Steve Owens, tournament organizer for the Bassmaster Kayak Series. Jeff Malott and Ryan Lambert. They are the hosts of the Kayak Bass Nation. So we're going to be talking a preview of the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. We're also going to be talking about recent trends in kayak builds. We're also going to be talking about some rules that have affected the Bassmaster Elite and Bass Opens. How does that relate to kayak bass fishing? What are the rules in kayak bass fishing, especially when it comes down to communication? I've always agree with the sentiment. The policing of it and the implementing is such a tricky part that I feel like, is it even worth it? Do people really have advantage of gaining information, which I'm sure there are. But I've seen examples of that, of tournaments, anglers helping out each other, which is not against the rules in most tournaments. So there's always that balance. So I wanted to get Steve-O's thoughts on that. I also want to get Steve-O as a tournament organizer, he sees the trends, the numbers up, then the numbers down, how's the health of the tournament scene? And what does that mean for kayak bass fishing tournaments? We used to have 3 major trails with the same format. Now we're down to 1, which is the Bassmaster Kayak Series. Hobie BOS is no more. KBF, no disrespect to KBF, but we don't know what's going on sometimes. There are some trails like the Native Bass, Big Bass Power Hour is such a long name, which is kind of like the old style MLF tournaments. There's the Kayak Adventure Series, which is kind of taking over what the spot for, I guess, the Hobie BOS and KBF, which is a different format, which is also puts a little bit more emphasis on the fun. So it's interesting to see where it's going. We're also going to be talking about how the economy, the tariffs on imports from certain countries, how it might affect. And I'm not going to get into the political side of this. This is not whether the current administration is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to pretend to be one. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. All I know is prices have gone up. We think about the Hobie BOS, the Hobie Kayaks, which from what I understand, they're now manufactured in Mexico. So what's that is, and they're the most expensive kayaks right now on the market. So what's going to happen to them? And just because other companies like Old Town built their kayaks here doesn't mean they don't buy parts or what do you say? I guess ingredients. No, it's not the word I'm looking for. Stuff that's manufactured outside the United States they might use to build a kayak here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I didn't do the research on every single kayak company that might be affected, because really we don't know what's items right now. Well, I don't know exactly which items are being tariffs, which not, which countries are, which country not, which kayak companies, so many of them are affected, may not be affected with this, but may affected with that. So we're just gonna spitball on that and think where we think this might be headed. But enough of me talking. Got a message on the private chat. Old Town ingredients built from scratch. Jeff Millard. So, all right. If you have comments or questions, see what I'm saying? I'm tired, boys. Please put it in the comment section. We'll do our best to answer those questions. So let's bring our guest in, Steve Owens. How are you doing today, Steve?
Buddy, I'm doing great. I'm sharing our post right now as we speak. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. While you do that, let's bring our next guest, Jeff. Jeff, how you doing, Manny?
What's up, man? Old Town's made with love. That's the ingredient.
Yeah, I know you're part of Old Town, so it's take it with a grain of salt, people. Before I bring our next guest, Jeff, I want to ask you this, because the caption's gonna say lunch money. I feel you give me your opinion. I feel like the shelf life of that is like kind of expired. Like, when's the last time our buddy Ryan Lambert actually took some lunch money?
Now, look, if you think I'm going to slander my partner before he comes on here live to defend himself, you must be crazy.
Armando is on one. Around in the green room.
What's the expiration date on this?
There is no expiration. There's not. No, if you hold a grand champion trophy,
even Mark Pendergraph already surrendered the Possum King to Michael Cates.
He should be the boat ramp guy. I mean, that was an amazing tournament, but Ryan did that for a while.
Well, Lambert was the TOC grand champion, and then he won another Hobie, and then he won another Big Bass, and then he won an AOY over here. And so, man, Armando, you need to get you some sleep, Armando. We're taking this show over.
I'm just asking the question. Let's bring him in, because I know he's dying.
No way, Jose, man.
Golly.
You can throw shade all you want to, baby. I got the checks.
Are you punch drunk, Ryan? He's been just throwing them, buddy.
I can't help it. Ryan, thank you so much.
I got to the point to where I transitioned to where it's mailbox money now, and I don't have to get out there and grind quite.
There we go.
There you go. Mailbox money.
One of my favorite podcasts is Ryan Windhorst, the Hoop Collective. And he always says winning a championship means you never have to apologize. So there you go, Ryan.
Thankfully, I got that one under my belt.
There you go. I mean, we control you. You're the TOC champion, so you can take it.
I may get the kayaks out here in the next few weeks, Armando, and see if I can find a little bit of lunch money down on Lake Gunnersville.
When are you guys coming to Ryan? Have you ever come to Texas official? Oh, yes, you have. You went. Yeah, last time I saw you was Toledo, man.
Dance all around the ramp one morning there at Possum Kingdom after.
The
wind advisory.
Yep. Steve-O canceling day one.
First time Lambert ever went to Texas, he cashed a check. Was that not a weekday tournament with Scotch and them?
That was on Grapevine.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Shout out to
where?
We got receipts for Armando. Don't mess with Don't mess with my ends, my friends, and my kin. We got receipts over here.
Grapevine on a Ned rig on straight braid because Scotch wouldn't give me a leader, so I found some smallmouth on a bluff.
What did you Yes, Lake Grapevine. They talked with smallmouth bass.
I know. I caught them.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes. 15 minutes from where I live. I actually was on Lake Grapevine today. Tough lake though. I was Lake Grapevine, Denton Creek, doing the sandbars run over there. But anyways, glad to have you all in. Thank you so much. I know you're not professional guests for a living. You have your work, you have your full-time work, your family. So appreciate you guys taking the time. Steve-O, let's start with you. Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. I know it's a busy week for you. How's that going? What are your thoughts on Lake Fork, and how did everything come together to, make it Lake Fork?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Obviously, Bassmaster's been to Lake Fork a few times. A lot of other tournament series have. As soon as we announced and knew that the expo and the classic was coming to Dallas, I reached out, like I do. My system is to talk to the anglers and find out where you want to fish, because if it sucks, you're not going to come. And we kicked around a lot of different things, but trying to stay within an hour and a half or two of Dallas, Lake Fork was about the only choice, and that was the first person I reached out to. And it took literally a week and a half, 2 weeks, and they were committed to signing, and we're good. So there was no real drama there, but it's just where the anglers wanted to go. And so, I think we had between, as you qualify the top 5 from each event plus last year's winner. So that's 26 from the Opens, top 50 from the Dakota Lithium Angler of the Year race, and then the Bass Nation. The Bass Nation's top 10% of each championship. So that adds about an extra, right now we've got about an extra 70 anglers. So we're at 155 qualified, and we're at 131. So the last 3 championships we've had, I think we've had 10 people not sign up, which I'm super happy about that. That's a pretty good amount, because we went through, there's nothing like the Bassmaster series in that we have Bass Nation that helps feed. The Bass Boat World has done it for 50 years, I think is what it is, 49, 48 years, something like that. And so, when you break it down, I mean, you still have to qualify for it. So if we did away with Bass Nation, you're still talking about 75 people having to qualify for a tournament. And we love that 50 to 60 angler type thing. But then when you include Bass Nation, what I think that does is it helps sustain the health of the kayak community, because as we see, a lot of things are shrinking. Some things are growing, and Bass Nation, fortunately, in a lot of states, is holding on. So we're happy with that.
You're a grower, Steve. I'll give you that. You're a grower
and a shower.
How are you? Since this is, I think we were talking about this. This is the start of your 3rd season as a tournament organizer director. How have you seen the growth? Are you happy with the growth overall of the tournament?
I am. We went through, just real quick. We started in 2020. We averaged, when we had 1-day events, we had 118 and 101. And then in 2022, we dipped to 92. And then we all took over in 2023, and we averaged 160. And last year we averaged 211. So far this year, we had 111 at Havasu, with the wildfires in California and that Sacramento boat show. That one probably should have been 150 anglers, which we were happy with 111 because it was our introduction.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, yeah, in Arizona.
And so we were, Arizona.
We were happy with that. I mean, because Hellfire is still a long way from California. But the feedback is the biggest thing, which is something you can't really advertise. And then we had 228 at Kissimmee, every tournament I'm messaging with Ryan, and I'm like nervous about it, and then bam, 228, and had a phenomenal event. And so I continue to see us grow. We've discussed, this year's schedule is spread out just because it was really difficult to get booked. So I'm not proud of that, but I'm happy with each of the fisheries we've got. So if we can get 180 at Del Hollow, I feel like the rest of the season is going to be phenomenal. So yeah, Bassmaster is over the moon over it. We've got more people in house that have things to do, because it's a small organization, and they're bought in and they're invested. And we've got more sponsors that are calling us and reaching out to me to introduce them to the sales team that are interested in the kayaking. Because the fishing space is struggling, just point blank period. Retail is struggling, but they understand what we do, and Bassmaster is a marketing organization, and they're wanting to get into what we all do. So that's where the angler's responsibility comes. Like we give away a GoPro each tournament, and I get 2-3 people submit footage for that. We got to do better than that. It's easy. It's easy to do, even if it's from your cell phone. And I convinced them to let us do it from cell phone footage, because if you don't have a GoPro, then you're the dude that needs to win a GoPro. But yeah, but everything's going really good. I know the industry is down, but over here on what we're doing, along with the Bass Nation stuff, is just, yeah, I'm really happy with it, and I don't think there's anything really that can be tweaked to make it much better. But obviously, if someone comes up with an idea, I'll entertain it.
It's interesting in the sense that when we think about where the economy is, and again, I'm not going to get into political side of things, but just the reality of, like, are we going to recessions? What's going to happen with um, spike on tariffs, whatever? You would think it's like, all right, this is going to have a negative effect on the kayak bass fishing and maybe the Bassmaster kayak series, but it also is, well, there's also the elites and the opens, which obviously for those tournament anglers, that's a lot more expensive. There might be that, well, people coming up that says, hey, you know what, instead of just doing the Bass Opens, let me try the Bassmaster kayak series. So I can see how it would benefit in one side. Overall, would it help out other people saying, well, now that I priced myself out of the fishing the bass boat tournaments, I can focus on kayak bass fishing, which probably people wouldn't have thought of it before. I don't know. It's hard to predict, right? But it's one way that it could go depending on how everything crumbles.
We're still seeing more of that. People coming over from the world, and speaking to your point on tariffs and this, that, and the other, it's kind of like, if there's a tariff put on pop rocks, don't buy pop rocks. Don't blow your money. If the price skyrockets, just don't buy it. There was an old timer I used to work with. He was like, if somebody calls your sister a slut, don't get pissed off unless it's true. So don't buy into prices are higher, you've got to spend more money. You don't have to. You just don't. And that's what I feel like in our kayaking sector of the industry is, we don't chase all the bells and whistles. So I feel like we'll be able to sustain and be healthy if you just don't run and raid the bank when the stock market goes low. When the stock market goes low, buy.
Is kayak fishing the sister? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's the sad part about it is, like, it's such a great point, but everything's kind of lost because every time you're gonna have Steve Warren, you're gonna have that one quote that is
you're
gonna help the
algorithms.
We got them. We got that one. We got it out of the way. But everything else he said afterwards is
y'all
true,
have a good night.
Very good. But we just got distracted with it. It's hilarious.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
So yeah. But
Ryan and Jeff, I want you to also chime in on, like, do you have any opinions on it or questions for Steve-O?
Now my sister's she's a real good girl. So
I don't have a
I like
sister.
her a lot. She's a phenomenal woman.
Segue. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I don't have a sister. My brothers are troubled, but I don't have a sister. So.
I have two, but anyways. All right. Other than siblings, what else do you have?
No, I mean, I get
it's
what you're
took a left
saying
turn.
as far as the economy goes, but I think that's kind of the same thing we saw like in 2020, right? Like, economy took a big hit. People had a lot of free time and extra money. Obviously, kayak fishing is cheaper to get into, but I think now the industry, as far as like being competitive on the national scene, the price of what it took 8 or 9 years ago was, $3,500 to have a competitive rig. And now you're looking at 20 grand, to outfit, to feel like you're on the same playing field. So I think that part has changed. And I think that's part of why we're seeing, some of these tournament organizations cease to exist. I think, number one, the economy, people don't have that extra money to spend to decide to chase 3 national trails at the same time. Plus the entry as far as rigging out your first badass kayak has gone through the roof. So I think we're just, it's part of growing. I think we're hitting a plateau. And you're seeing, people decide where they spend their money. And I think that's where the strength of the product that Steve-O puts out, for instance, is what's making Bass so successful, in addition to Bass being around forever and having that name recognition and offering more as far as publicity goes and advertisement goes than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I mean, 2020 was, quote, the economy was down, but everything didn't cost as much either. I mean, COVID was a one-off. Since then, inflation's been out of control. We've probably been in a recession for about 2.5 years. They just redefined what a recession was. Now we're kind of seeing the fruits of that in real life with the market crashing, and it's taking its medicine from the changes that are happening. But the fact is, everything costs more. Yep. So people are going to be real selective with what they buy and where they put their money for entry fees, et cetera. And I think that's hurting some regional trails, probably even some local trails, but definitely the national trail scene. I know it's sad to see. A friend of mine here in Arkansas has kayak shop closed. There's kayak shops closing all over the country, and it's just because people can't afford things like they used to. It'll come back. I mean, once this stabilizes and prices aren't going to come down, but they'll stop going up so fast, and people can catch up wage wise, and then we'll see things level out and the growth happen again. But yeah, the economy is the real deal. I mean, everything is 30-40% higher. They can tell us 6%, 8% inflation all they want, but it's more than that, right?
Yeah, it's interesting how how it's going to affect them when we're going in. Again, I'm not going to chime in on what is the right decision on that. That's way out of my league. But like I mentioned, I think it's the beauty I think about the tournaments right now is like there's a tournament anglers right now like the Christine Fishers, Russ Snyders of the world's. You see what I said about the intro, forgetting names. Drew Gregory's. So many anglers right now that Guillermo Gonzalez that are just competing at a more like serious, more, I don't want to say professional because I don't want that to seem like whoever's not doing it's not a professional, but the fact of the matter is there's big money. There's a lot more money involved. Sometimes it's up to like $10,000 for first place. There's also the growth of like your social media. Helps out with the sponsorship. You win a tournament or you win the championship. So obviously that's going to cost more, but there's also the larger part of the community that is not, the entry fee might be a little bit rich for them, but they still want to enjoy it. And then there's also the Kayak Adventure Series, the Native Big Bass Power Hour, where, it's less money, but I think there's a little bit for everybody right now. I think when we look at the more dedicated side of like fishing for bigger money pay or bigger paydays, it used to be we would have room for two. Now I think it's not going to be room for two anymore. It's just going to be that one, the Bassmaster Kayak Series, and then the rest are going to be still competitive, but it's going to be more for the anglers that can't really afford the travel, the Airbnbs, and the entry fees. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think we fell into a thinking, oh, you have to be a travel angler and spend a week. You don't. You just don't have to let someone set a narrative for you. We've got 6 people that can do it, and I'm looking at the standings here. We've got, including championships, you've got Drew, Russ, Siddiqui, Jim Davis, Garrett Morgan. We've had 5 years, 50 tournaments, and we've had 5 people win 2 events. And everyone else is all over the place. So if you go and pull and extract the top 10% of each event for the last 5 years, you're not going to see a lot of duplicates in there.
Yeah.
And that's just what we all do. We get the tunnel vision and think, if you can't do this, like, to Ryan's point, you can rig a kayak like that and be at 20 grand because things are so expensive, but you can find cheaper ways to do it and not have to do it. And I've been keeping an eye on that, just from Tennessee and Georgia Bass Nation, kind of knowing, what Ryan and Jeff have on their kayak, or Joseph Gayton or someone like that. And in the nation side, I mean, we're people are winning $2 grand a weekend for first place.
Yep.
They don't have these fully rigged out things anymore. But that's what gets the flash on Facebook, is seeing somebody with that decked out rig, look at Marshall, I mean, he barely even has, a headlamp on in a kayak, and he wins all kinds of money.
Yeah.
But you can defeat yourself, and you just end up being a complainer and a whiner in some instances. But you don't have to have it, And I think that's what we're going to see on Lake Fork. You can afford what you want to afford, but kayaking. What I learned, what I saw, and I know you all agree because we've had these conversations before, is you look at the boat world and everybody starts complaining because Ito or whomever has 4 forward-facing sonar transducers. Well, then the next thing you know, well, this guy's got a forward-facing and a 360, so now he's in that same category. So we all complain about what the other person has instead of just putting on your overalls and going to whip somebody that weekend, going to take their lunch money. I mean, Lambert, I can't tell you how many times we fish tournaments. He don't know jack crap about what's going on. He just came in from work.
Don't
traveling
feed
the
that
country,
ego.
And
We
he
still got
came in
like
and
an
just
hour.
said, hell, man, dude, Armando, I've been on the phone with a boy, and he's raising mortal hell because he ain't caught nothing. And he finds a rusty hook and a half-eaten worm in the bottom of a kayak, and he'll catch 3 to 5 fish in like no time, and he wins. It's because he didn't quit, So don't let, because somebody pulls up in a Maserati, think that you can't beat them in a foot race,
You're exactly right, Steve. But I think that there
Yeah.
is a problem emerging there where it is scaring some people off.
It is. Barrier of
Yeah.
entry is scaring people off, and that's
Yeah,
why I don't allow dual motors.
DP, man.
Don't scare people away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my own son, we've had this conversation this week because he's not really fishing the kayak tournaments this year locally or anything else. He's like, he's got a family, he's growing his business, and talking about, if I can't get scope and I can't get this, it's kind of pointless. And I'm like, son, it's not. I mean, pick and choose, fish in the springtime, fish in the fall, fish will be shallow. Don't worry about it. But I'm sure he's not alone in thinking like that. Right.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I hear you too. You're right.
I think,
and we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it on the podcast interviewing folks like, how often does a winner have scope in play at some point, just to, point that out, because that's one of the bigger investments on rigging out the new kayaks. And it may not be that they were using it to catch the fish, but they were using it to see, where the fish were holding or how they were responding to the bait. There's been so many instances, even shallow water fisheries like that. That's one piece of technology. And you saw it with the NPFL outlawing it this year. Like it's become, such a big issue across the board in competitive fishing that I think, while kayak fishing is a much smaller, kind of niche market, it's trickled over into us. And I think it's a contention point across the board. But I think we got bigger fish to fry than worrying about somebody with live scope on a kayak.
Sure. And I don't think it's just scope. I think scope, motors, etc. Like because of social media, which is fantastic, which is why these trails have gotten so big. Social media pushes that and makes people want to come fish Steve's tournament, the Bassmaster tournaments, things like that. But it also lets everybody see everybody's rig on the TikTok videos and on the Instagram reels, and it kind of freaks them out. And really, Steve is 100% right. You can go buy a non-rigged out Pelican from Academy Sports, throw it in and crack 95 inches and win a tournament. You can do that.
Well, I mean, look at Drew. Look at all the stuff that he's won, how many checks he's cashed, and he focuses on a completely, not really a technological scheme. It's more of an access and finding unpressured fish. He power fishes all the time. He throws straight braid nearly all the time. I mean, it's, you can find those things, but a lot of people won't go to those links, to find those or get to those areas, that kind of stuff, man. And, we've seen rule changes on access and portaging and, everything else, but he still finds a way to do it.
Yeah. And like to your point, he says, I'm not going to be distracted by TikTok or what's going on. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go find the fish, and so that was, and just a quick little segue. We came to Havasu, and Drew, like a lot of people, he didn't read, and he's asking questions about access and where to go. And I said, brother, you can't. You just that's not allowed. And he's an inquisitive person, so he asked, and I explained why, and he understood it. And he asked another question, and it wasn't so. And he was like, well, that's what I had practiced on Google Maps and this, that, and the other. And so he said, I guess I'll just have to go do this. And by God, he did it in one. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, and so, but he didn't give up. He didn't say, I don't have this or I can't go do this. He went fishing. And at the end of the day, you still have to go fish. And I feel like I'm the same way, when like at Seminole, I did well there, but I was whining. I was pissed off. My motor went out. I couldn't get my live scope to work correctly. The transducer was going bad, and I baby it. I put it in a kayak cushion, banded up, and I didn't have anything, and I was angry, and so I went and checked the honey hole, and I didn't have anything there, and talked to a guy that was there who had caught a few. So I decided to just kick up the river, and it was bare bones. Literally had a map, and that was the only thing that I could really use because I'm kicking up the hooch, and it's ugly, and I ended up doing really well. But it was because I just decided I'm not going to say I don't have live scope today. I don't have a motor today. So I might as well just sit at home and watch Andy Griffith. No, I went and fished.
Wow.
And I found them. And so that's what we have to do. We got to do better at that. It's just don't let somebody beat you before you even put it in the water.
Yeah. See, you don't even have to be able to read to win these tournaments. It's amazing.
That's it. All you got to know is some numbers, which, by the way, we're all letters in my identifier codes from now on. So
really,
you do have to read. You do have to read a little bit.
Oh boy. Oh man, Andy Griffith, that one stuck out to me. I think you can go with let me see, what's the newer Walking Dead or something like that.
That's the new you
can
update that one.
Landman, my old boy Billy Bob Thornton.
Good Arkansas boy right there.
Yeah.
Jason Robinson makes a good comment or an interesting comment. Says kayak needs definition other than made from plastic. That's a good comment. Because Steve, let me get your opinion on this. We see new trends now with kayak builds and designs and all that. Have there been talks about where do we draw the line? When is it? It stopped being a kayak like a long time ago. Let's be honest. But where do we draw the line? I know the DP no dual motors for now, and I don't know about you. I don't know. I feel like that shouldn't. I don't feel like we should allow two motors on a kayak personally. But again, that's just my opinion. But as far as design goes, where do we? Is there going to be a point where it says okay, it has to be this length or this wide or anything about the design that you might think that at some point it's going to need a little bit more definition?
We already have a length and how it's marketed. If it like the Johnny boat that Feel Free or somebody makes, well, it's labeled a Johnny boat, so it's not allowed. And I think in Drew's Kayak Adventure Series, they have a length times width kind of formula, which I don't necessarily agree with. Not arguing it, not saying they're wrong, but I don't agree with it. But I think where we're at is you literally have to look, and it's your judgment as a tournament director, whether you say, and not that you're God or anything, but I mean, I have 4 kayaks right now that are in my email, and I have struggled with them for a year. They're not. And a Hobie Pro Angler is not a kayak. It's a fishing platform.
Yeah.
Native Titan is not a kayak. It's a fishing
it's a
platform.
barge.
Old Town Autopilot that I have. I love it. But it's a fishing platform. So I'm comfortable with that. But there's a point when you're just like, no. And the only explanation I can give to that is it's my opinion. It's kind of like judging a fish. My opinion is it's not touching the 1/4 inch mark, so I can't give it to you. That's the best answer I can give. There's not going to be an absolute chiseled in granite answer. So that's just
my
the best
line was with
got.
the blue sky when that pontoon came out. I was like,
I was about to say.
Hey,
well, here's the thing: call these manufacturers and say, "Hey, guys, before you just put something on the market, how about it?" Now, again, tournament fishing is a small portion of the kayak world. But at a certain point, and I actually had these conversations with a few manufacturers, I was like, why would you not reach out to AJ or myself or Chad or whomever and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because as soon as you come up with something like the XTR, I mean, it's pushing the limit of what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
I want one. It's an amazing fishing platform, but it's pretty close to being there. The Johnny boat, they just wasted money. It'll never be in a tournament fishing because it's a bass buggy. That's what it is.
That's my fear
that's what
when
they
it
all
comes
are.
to this. Oh, Jeff, chime in before I comment.
No, that's kind of what they all are. I'm just wondering, Steve, how many more years till we're allowed to use gas outboards?
I won't. I mean, it's not. I mean,
Yamaha gonna have to pick that tab up, boy.
I'm just saying, man.
Well, they bought Torpedo, so now they've got a lithium
Yep.
motor. So yeah, but then we got Newport. So I mean, we're all squared away there. I mean, it was like we talked about. When pedal drive started coming out, that changed the dynamic and the thought process. And what we do, and then you've got but to your, like we talked about the DP stuff and 7 transducers. It's not an arms race, and that's what we all do. We rig these kayaks like it's a '67 Chevelle. You want to make it flashy because it's what we do. But you got to put a point on it where you stop it. Otherwise, like what Jeff was alluding to, is you're not going to have people fishing tournaments anymore. And if that's the way it goes, then okay, I'll find something else to do for a living. I was
the thing is,
I wasn't looking
Steve,
for a job when I got this one, but
yeah, the thing is, Ryan and I brought this up. I don't know, a couple of times on the podcast. Like, we are so far removed from the term kayak angler. These guys are just anglers.
Yeah,
that have found a new vessel to fish out of. They're not like, people aren't familiar with paddle strokes and like kayak ergonomics, and that's like, nobody even thinks about that. It's like, give me a little sculling paddle and a motor, and I'm good to go out of this little platform. So it's, we're kind of misusing the term kayak angler because people aren't really kayakers. They want to fish,
right.
And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. They want to fish. They're not worried about kayak or not or whatever. They just want to fish.
That's a great point. I've often quoted you on that on the podcast when we talk about this subject. I think you nailed it right there. It's like the especially when we talk about the Bassmaster Kayak series, which, like I said, it's more like the serious angler. Like more money, more presence on social media and all that. My worry about this, Steve, is like at some point. The pitfall to this is I think at some point this is going to be like, well, we're going to allow boats with electrical motor. That's it. Like, that's all it's going to be. Like, you can fish out of a kayak, you can fish out of a John boat, as long as it's an electronic motor and it's not a gas motor and it doesn't have X amount of horsepower, whatever. I think that's the danger of where we're heading. I think at that point we just lost our soul. And I just feel like inevitably that's where we're going.
They done took our soul.
Just reached in there and said,
we went deep with that one.
But
I mean, that's what lithium does to you, Ryan. Takes your soul.
Hey, boy.
What do you guys think? Like, what's your honest opinion on this?
I mean, there's always a chance of everything, but I don't think that that's a viable option. I really don't.
Do you think at some point the Bassmaster Kayak series is going to go like, wait a minute, or the Bassmaster brand organization is going to go, wait a minute, Steve-O, if we allowed this John motors with electronics, wouldn't we get more people to sign up? Wouldn't that mean more money? So let's go ahead and do it.
No, because they literally, and we have these conversations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have took the job, and we've had them since then. No, they want our world to stay what we want.
I don't think at 230 anglers a tournament bass, it's like we need more numbers. Like,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Like, we already have to have the conversation of what do we do next? Do we need this to drop back to 180 anglers and have a 50 angler elite series? I mean, we're having those conversations, but we got to have a sponsor to be able to make that happen because. Right now we all are just paying for glorified entry fees, but when we get to a 50 angler field, of elite people that are committing to X amount of events a year, you need more than your entry fee paid back to you. You know,
Yeah.
you just do. And we don't have that yet, but you know, they're working on it. You know, that was one thing that I'm very proud of is the last 2 years that sales team has jumped on board and they've looked everywhere. I mean, non-endemics, and these, you know, I'll just be, I've shared with you guys because I reach out, but I only need 2 more events and I'll have all 6 of our events plus a championship booked, you know, and I should have those done all but one at the classic this coming week. I mean, and that's substantial, you know, and that's working with Drew and the Kayak Adventure Series, Gene and Michael Musgrove at the Team Kayak Series, which you know I chose with Dugout Bait and Tackle to sponsor that series this year because we need it. You know, we need everybody to be successful,
Yeah.
and we are competing for anglers, but I mean, you know, we need everybody to be successful. And so I chose, you know, because there's some conflicting dates with what we do in Tennessee and Georgia Bass Nation, which is very successful. Georgia Bass Nation is growing this year. We're averaging 18 more anglers this year than we did the last 2 years, you know. But we need everybody, and Bass, that's what they want as well. So,
Yep. Right.
I'll be
Anything you
devil's
wanna add?
advocate on that, man. Years ago, Bassmaster made boat rules for the bass boat guys because there was guys like Mark Menendez who had little tiny metal boats and 90 horse running up on Ryan's favorite lake, Lake Dardanelle, and winning tournaments back behind levees, and through tunnels and things like that. So, you know, there were some rule changes there. And I think we're a light years away from something like that. Like Steve-O said, when we're talking, if they were ever went down the road of an invitational, I'm sure there may be some boat restrictions. I don't know, but I think we're so far from either one of those things. It's kind of a pointless conversation, but interesting.
When you talk about the having done the lead trail, Steve, your prediction, how far away are we from that?
it's impossible to even say. It really is, simply because you know we've got 2 year contracts with the people we have now. You know, and doing what we do with Dugout Bait and Tackle. You know, I do purchasing and our sponsorship through our anglers. Seeing how there's not much meat on the bone. There just is not. I got caught up recently in a little bit of stuff up here in my little brain. You know, I got angry about some things where, like, just to say people like these 2 guys in front of us who make an influence and an impact. I was helping some people and they got told no. And I chose to just be angry at the fishing industry over it because they deserve, in my opinion, because they work hard. But then after a little while, through regret, I started reanalyzing it and learning. Shut up, number one. But the second thing was you got people like Seth Feider out there who make a huge impact on these companies. But how hard is it for them to prove that he actually makes them money when it comes to tungsten weights and this, that, and the other? And so I was angry that we were told no. I was just being a brat because I see how hard you all work. But you still have to put that, you know, and we've talked about it with the logo heroes on the jerseys and stuff. Just because you've got those, you know, we've seen it in our grassroots stuff in this area. Just because you put somebody on your banner and logo doesn't mean you make them a dime, you know.
Yeah.
If you know to give someone $1,000 to sponsor something, they have to literally sell you a kayak to recoup that, just to recoup the money. They got to sell you 2 kayaks for you to make money off of them, you know. And that's a lot of education that some people don't get. But at the same time, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to have a seminar every week on Facebook that says, you know, if Biz Baits gives you $500 worth of baits, you need to sell them $1,500 worth of baits to make that up because of the retail price. But you know, I just feel like Jeff kind of mentioned earlier, or maybe it's another conversation we had before this podcast over the years. We're just running out of people that want to make it happen for themselves. We just are. You know, we're running out of tournament directors that are willing to put in the time and money. Because as soon as you make a you're crucified for it, or
Yep.
and then you've got TDs that do make O's, and instead of just being like you talked about transparency from day one, Ryan and I, when he started TVKA, and I come in a year later, and when we took it and made it what it was, the first thing we did was as soon as we screwed up, we were like, because we're talking to our friends that took their paychecks and put into us, we were like, guys, we should have done this, we didn't, and here's what we're going to do to not do it again. And that's why I do. My biggest fear is to disappoint somebody by something I did or didn't do the right way. And anglers should feel that way too, but they don't. They just want to vilify any sort of thing that doesn't go their way, or if you have to tell them they did an uh-oh and they can't fish tomorrow, you're in the wrong, instead of them doing some self-reflection and saying, yeah, I got to do better.
I wanted to touch on that. And I don't want to talk in the specifics of what happened, but I'm going to use it as a reference of the point that I'm trying to make. TOC this or last year ended controversy about, was it the same fish, would have changed the standings, who was the winner, and all that. Not going to touch on that. What I do want to touch on is, I feel like of all the tournament directors I see on at that scale of national trails, one thing that I appreciate about you, Steve, is the transparency. I get that sometimes, you just make it as a tournament director, you feel like, hey, the less we talk about this, the quicker it's going to go away. Happens with the whole rule bend Lake Fork years ago, and the Hobie BOS kind of happened the end of this year. It's one of those things where, like, I get it, but at some point there's got to be a balance where you as a organizations have to say, hey, we understand that this may seem controversy. Maybe it's because of a lack of information. This is how the steps were taken to arrive from point A decision to point B decision. Like, what was how do we arrive at that this is going to be the decision whether it's disqualify, not disqualify? I think a few years ago you talked about something that I don't think a lot of people knew, and I appreciated. It was, you can remind me which trail was it, but there was a trail where there was a controversy about the fish that were caught, that it looked like it had died. Like, it's like, yeah, that's a dead fish. Something about the red hue on it, or the eyes or something. You called if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you called that angler, you said, you need you to come, we need to do an investigation. And the angler said, no, I'm not gonna partake in it. It's like, okay, now you're waiving your right, and now we have to disqualify you. I don't want to talk specifically about that, but the point that I'm trying to make here is the transparency aspect of it. How do you, as a tournament organizer, tournament director, determine when is it like, all right, this we're not going to even entertain this, we just let it fade out over time? And where is it that you feel like, okay, we need to address this and show a little bit of transparency, so maybe it'll go away quicker? Granted, there's always people that are going to chase the click, but at least there's this, like, hey, we just heard it from the horse's mouth. This is how they arrived to the decision, so we can stop speculating. We can still debate whether it was wrong or right. We can stop speculating about how the decision was taken.
Yeah, for me, it's what I can sleep with. It really is. There's instances, we had an instance last year at Susquehanna. I mean, we had, an angler or two do some things, admitted to doing those things, and that should have been the end of it. But and to Ryan will tell you all the time, I give too much in certain situations instead of just tightening it up. And from day one, every tournament I had to disqualify someone, give them some sort of suspension. And in this tournament, it was just cut and dry. The person did something that they shouldn't have done. And then I gave them a rebuttal. And what they did was they come up with about 5 different stories and flat out lied in emails, and all of that. And so for me, I needed to get that out and voice it. And Bassmaster said, no, that's not what you do. You handed out the discipline, you let it go. I said, well, this person is saying A, B, and C. And they said, it don't matter. You did your job. Well, having said that, there are things after the fact of other situations that have happened. That one's dead and gone. But other things that do happen, I do feel like, and I use my judgment, and I have a panel of people that I talk to about it. And I've went against, it's not like Bassmasters trying to control me or anything like that, but how they handle things because they're a professional organization. I feel like I still need to share something with you all. So I do, I have anglers that'll call and question, like Christine getting in the water to get her phone. Well, I mean, guess what? If you drop your phone at the boat ramp and you're in waist deep of water, that's the same as you being in a 2-foot flat somewhere else. That's not unsafe boating practice. The elites dive in the water to get their stuff all the time. So I shared with people, you are allowed to do that, and that's education. But to answer your question shortly, it's whatever I can sleep with at night. There are things that eat me up that I feel like I need to share, and I have to do it. Otherwise, it wears me out. And if I get in trouble for it, then I'll just get in trouble for it. But that's just. But the transparency thing goes back to what I was talking about with Lambert and our TVKA stuff, and TVKA went from just us to having Kurt Smits, Jody Queen, and everybody and their brother from across the country stopping through and fishing with us as they were heading somewhere. It's because we did it that way.
Ryan, Jeff,
I got something to say about that if I can.
Yeah, of course.
Transparent to who is the question, because if the organization is hiding something from the angler that's got a problem, well, that's a huge issue, right? But if they're being completely transparent with, let's say, hypothetically, I protest the result of a tournament, hypothetically, and they are completely transparent with me on what they were doing to rectify that. Tell me everything they've done. They're 100% honest. And then I still don't like that answer. And then hypothetically, I sue that organization. Now my hands are tied. I can't go public and say something about it. Hypothetically. So
to be clear, hypothetically, this is Jeff Malott again.
Yeah.
Nobody's
I got beans on the stove, guys. They're burning. I'll see y'all later.
No. What I'm saying, you get what I'm saying, though. So if an organization is playing things close to the vest and not telling the angler anything, they're just saying, no, this is the ruling and you're done. That's a problem. But if they're being transparent and saying, hey, this is what we've done, I'm sorry you're upset, whatever, that's fine. But there's no way that Steve can go public every time there's a question about something in every tournament, explain it to us all for the good of the community. That's not happening. So
that's a good point.
The angler has to take a little responsibility here and say, hey, you know what? I signed up for this tournament. The rules say at tournament director's discretion. Now let's move on to the next tournament and see if I can win that one.
Yeah, right. when you're dealing with visual things, like I've worked chemical plants my whole life, and I've worked with a contract because I'm a union person, and so at the company's discretion is a BS line. It just is. It's that way. I can make you work 70 hours a day because I am the company and it's at my discretion. But within that, what you just said, you can fight for that explanation. And when you're talking about things that are visual or up to interpretation, it's kind of like arguing balls and strikes. It just is. And at a certain point, you got to say, that man sucker punched me and he whipped me. I just got to take it today, and so I agree with what you're saying there, Jeff.
Ryan?
I think the biggest thing that we've seen, especially, Jeff and I and Steve-O on the other side of it, is people taking to social media first before they ever, talk to the tournament director or the organization, and we've tried to curb that over the years because everyone's favorite thing to do would be run to us with a scandal that blasted across the internet. And it's, a lot of times people wouldn't even voice that concern or file a protest or even bring it to the attention of the tournament director to further look into. And I think, as we've seen this sport grow, and obviously it's very social media centered for the most part, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and getting the TD involved should be at the top of your list on the water right then. It shouldn't be, texting 15 of your buddies or sending pictures around or whatever. Like if you have a problem in that tournament, that you go straight to the tournament director. And again, we've seen this, we've seen how many scandals, dozens of scandals where things were missed or overlooked and there wasn't that transparency. I'm not saying there's not a time, to where you can make your opinion public or get more attention to a problem, but I don't think that that's the right answer in most cases. Like if it's judging issues or something that what the one where people are drawing dots on fish with Sharpies or tail cutting or whatever it is, like there are things that have been missed for years that come about, and those things, yes, you need more attention on, because obviously they've been overlooked or brushed under the rug for a long time. But if it's something that's happened to you day one or in a championship, especially, like I promise you, these TDs are more crucial. Like they feel the weight of this stuff. And I'm not saying regular season events aren't heavy, but in a championship, when there's that kind of exposure, they're looking at every detail, I guarantee you, they're reviewing every fish 6 or 8 times. Like, it's the chances of an oversight in those scenarios are slim to none. And we've said it a million times. If you don't like the way the tournaments ran, don't fish those tournaments anymore. Like, you're the consumer, just don't go there anymore.
Johnny Maddox was an interesting. I get what he's saying. He says that my discretion is a hard answer to swallow. I get what you're saying, Johnny. I also think there are things that ultimately it falls into that area where, listen, it's a judgment call. Unfortunately, it's a judgment call. Maybe something we've never seen before.
That's why they're judges.
There's no hard line rule about it, so you just have to accept it at the tournament director discretion. That person violate this. Also, the spirit of the rule is something that throws in every now and then. So there are some times, Johnny, where you just have to say, "Hey, listen, it's really a judgment call." So it falls on the tournament director or a panel. I know for Bassmaster there is the appeals process, where, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's 2 people outside of the Bassmaster organization that's going to be in that panel, 1 representative or something like that. Basically, it's not everybody's from the Bassmaster brand that's going to be in the panel, because that would be, I guess, one-sided. You can't appeal to the organization and then think that their employees are not going to side with you. But that's either here or there. What I think it's, and again, there's always going to be that scenario where it's like really, and I understand the tournaments organization saying, like, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves and say that this is always how we're going to proceed with this. I would like to see, and maybe there's something that's going to be preemptive, like maybe when the start of the season comes out, it says like, hey, listen, in case there is a decision about whether it's the same fish or not the same fish, blah, 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 this is how we judge it. Like, we'll have a 5-man personnel, we'll make a vote if the decision is unanimous, kind of like this is the framework or how decisions are taken. I think it might be a good idea, but again, I know it's going to open a lot of other doors. But I think that's something that can be maybe studied and see if it's a good idea. It's like, how as an organization, we handle situations when it's like discrepancy on if it's the same fish or not. How do we handle maybe other type of things? Like, this is the format that we use.
I would tell you this, man.
Go ahead.
No, as a former tournament director, I ran a lot of tournaments, not on the level of Steve or any of these national tournaments, but I would bet Steve would say the same thing. The last thing you want to do is fall into a discretionary call. You want it to be everything to be black and white. That's like the last resort, is to have some tournament director's discretion. So don't act like every decision made throughout the tournament is at the tournament director's discretion. Of course not. Most things are black and white. It's a 20-incher or it's not. That's just the last resort. Make a judgment call, which I'm sure Steve never wants to have to make a judgment call in a tournament, right?
Yeah, and to kind of Johnny's point, you know, I'm friends with a lot of people, and I make it that way. I'm not going to sit in a room isolated by myself. So I go out and have a beer and a burger with everybody. I go fish in my off time with anglers. If somebody's driving through and I have time, I'm going. I mean, this is. I left a great job to do this for a living because I wanted to enjoy my life until I can do this no longer. And so, what that means to Johnny Maddox's point is I judge people that I know more stringent. You know, you're supposed to say unilaterally, I judge everybody the same. But no, I judge Ryan Lambert's fish harsher than I do anybody's because he's one of my best friends, and that might not be fair to him. Not to say that I don't judge John Doe's as well, but for Ryan's, I make certain,
Does that mean
Hell, I was
Jeff
at
gets a
nine.
little pass every now and then?
No, he deducts.
He's not that
Ryan.
likable.
So I was at Night of the Champions when Lambert busted out of the gate on Chick, eating dinner, going over because we thought that he might have a fish discrepancy, and he did not. But here I mean, that's what we did. And what I did was I enlisted AJ, Vinny, Joe, several other tournament directors across the country. There's about 5 of us, and I'm not going to advertise it that on a panel because at a certain point that's the reason I don't email, text nonstop tournament stuff when you register. I'm going to send you an email when practice starts, and that is it. Because it's your job to click on Tourney X because I put all the information on there. It's not my job to show you where to go get your gosh dang fishing license. But as kayakers, I've done it too. That and so when we took this over and I talked to Ryan, Jeff, and numerous other anglers, we got to set a narrative to do your own job, and guess what? I don't get bothered hardly at all anymore on how to do things. And for a long time we babysat, and I still sometimes I'm like, man, am I missing this? No, I'm not. It's on Tourney X. You're going to get an email when practice starts. But on the whole judging fish thing and this and that and the other, the way I look at it is prove to me that it's not the same fish because that's how I look at it is it's not the same fish right out of the gate. I don't even look when you upload 20 and a half. I don't even look at what you say. I look at the fish, and which anymore, I don't judge very many fish because I hire 2 to 3 judges to do it. And if I'm in there messing with fish and let's just say Ryan is working on something with an angler and I go ahead and judge it, well, then I screwed up his process. So what I do all day long is look at duplicates, duplicate. If it's a 14 and another 14, I double check them throughout the tournament. And that helps me keep up with the flow of a tournament so that when we do an awards or a live update, I can talk about it. But that's what I do. And so when it comes to judging those fish, here's another thing that wears me out. A biologist looked at it. Well, dude, are your vision parameters and observation skills any better because you're a biologist or you turn a wrench for a living? You can still see on paper what's on paper or the screen what's on screen. So just because a person's a biologist doesn't mean that they can tell a black speck or a fin cut better than you. So that's not the end all be all for me either.
Yeah.
We did trust a biologist on the Georgia Bass Nation thing about fish being transported from a body of water because we had mastodons being posted on a body of water that doesn't even own them. Yeah, I mean, and so there's a lot to that. We're not just doing this for the heck of it, like Lambert said. It eats us up to have to, and that, like I told you guys, like right out of the gate, Gunnersville when I took over, boom, 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 3 friends. I had to disqualify day 1 for whatever. We get on into Hartwell, literally a man that gives me a paycheck for what I do for a living. Disqualified 3 fish from him right out of the gate. We get to Possum Kingdom. A person that was traveling with me, I had to disqualify a fish. they didn't even catch a fish that whole tournament because I disqualified those and they spiraled. And so on and so forth, you know. But the one thing that I did learn great that I remember from John Stewart is give a penalty if you can, you know. And we just had some on Kissimmee that we had to delve out, but you just got to read. And you mentioned something a moment ago, and I'll paraphrase: how do you avoid A, B, and C? It's you pick up your phone and call the tournament director. So for years, KBN people were just throwing, like Ryan said, did you see this, and this? Well, they're a news agency, so to speak. They're going to report some things if there were truth to them. But for forever, people were just throwing everything that happened in a tournament at them and expecting them to figure it out. Well, I mean, you know, you can procreate, so use those two things to pick up the phone and call somebody, and say, hey, I saw this, and this. You know, I've had tournaments where literally the next year I had a person come up to me at registration and say, man, I'm sorry I didn't call you, but I saw this, and this. And I'm like, well, I mean, so how can you sit there and say somebody's cheating when nobody reports it? And then when they report it, it's just verbiage and there's no proof to it. You know, what do you do with that? And then you have people. I literally had a person, a well-known blabberjaw, who said, you know, this and this happened. And then when I researched it, guess what? 30 years ago, the land was declared public. So it was not a rules infraction. But that person had told X amount of people that there was some speculative cheating going on because of this private property that was made public 30 years ago. So there you go. So how do you combat that? You don't. You just gotta.
Steve, I'll tell you this: with the early days of KBN, the problem there, when I asked earlier, transparent to who, people ran to the internet because, you know, they'd call the tournament director and they'd change their phone number. So,
you know what I mean? Yeah, I've been a part of that. I've heard it. Yeah.
Times have changed, thank God. So it's not, you know, the bat signal's not needed like it used to be. Thanks Lord, you know.
Well, to the point of thankfully the bat signal. I think we've tried to avoid being the bat signal, because when people would message with these things, then we spend 2 or 3 days calling all the people they should have called in the first damn place to figure out what's going on before we say anything about it. And like, it's, you know, if you're the one filing a complaint, don't take it to somebody else to do all the homework for you. Like, come with your notebook at least.
Yeah. That's a good point that you're trying to make, Ryan and Jeff, on this, because you know, Susquehanna, that big controversy about, you know, fishing with a guide who's also a photographer, blah blah blah. You guys came out and he said, hey, okay, we got this information, you guys are telling us this is what happened. I never thought you took the side of the protesters. I always thought you guys just mentioned, hey, and you even mentioned this guys can catch him with or without help. You don't, they've proven it. They're great anglers. It's
well, that was one of the tournaments where Steve,
and after that,
where it started.
I literally
tournaments, and I told Steve, I'm like, hey, here's 3 different people complaining about these 3 different things. You know, keep an eye on this shit, because like the last thing I want for Steve's my best friend, has been forever. The last thing I want is for him to be making his Bassmasters debut, running tournaments, and then people come up with all this stuff and give, you know, the tournament director a black eye, the organization a black eye, because nobody went through the proper channels and they're just trying to start a fire.
Well, and the point that I'm trying to make, you guys mentioned it, and Russ Snyder was really pissed off at it. You know, he even went on the paddle, and Finn mentioned it. I'm not, and I respect, good for him standing up. And I thought when I had Russ Snyder on the podcast, we talked about it, and I always felt like I get why Russ is pissed, but I also think Ryan and Jeff didn't really attack Russ. They just said, this is what we're listening, what we're hearing. This is why people are protesting. Go talk to the tournament director.
Call the tournament director.
Yep. I guess you were kind of
sometimes bringing things
crucified
up
for bringing that up.
Yeah,
and I've actually had people come on to my podcast that have won a national show that said, hey, can I be on your podcast? Because I don't want to be in KBN. That literally happened twice, and I was like,
I love
that's
that.
surprising. But a lot of it was like when I asked, it's like, well, they sided with, and I'm like, did you listen to what they said? Because they just
That
brought
happens
it
a
up.
lot.
What happened? They didn't
People will
attack
catch
it.
a
no.
clip, they'll catch a
Yeah.
highlight or something. They
Yeah.
don't listen to the context of anything. It's just like the
Right.
news today.
No, there's two things that Ryan and I can promise you this. We may bring up things that have actually happened that people don't
Yeah.
like that people are talking about them. That's a fact. We may do that, but they did happen,
Yeah.
and we do not lie. We're not making anything up. We're just telling you what happened. Sometimes people get upset.
Come on here and
That's
talk
true.
about it if you would like.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, we're
But
not
to
clear
doing
also
the
the
air.
point, going back
Clear
to
the
the point
air.
of the whole scene with the TOC, I was like, well, wait a minute. Let me be objective about this. Later, I came to a conclusion. Okay, I think Hobie, tournament director, organizer, Steve Field, AJ, whatever, took the right decision. I think, but I got that information from listening to you guys explaining how the thought process was, which great. But I feel like, well, is now KBN the official spokesperson for it. Like that,
We're not the
information
official
could have
spokesperson
been
for anyone. I want to be.
Yeah, I know you're not,
clear
but
on that.
that's to me that's something that could have been addressed by a simple press release, not necessarily AJ or Steve Fields coming up and explaining themselves, but just doing a press release. This is the situation. This
Well,
is
here's
the
a,
claim.
here's a
This is
bad
the
thing about
protest.
press
This is the
releases because we
decision.
ran into
Yeah.
that with Georgia Bass Nation. When
Yeah.
you start putting out releases, you give someone things to paint you into a corner.
Yeah. There's legal action, man.
If you are not absolutely
good point.
Rain Man when it comes to litigious stuff, somebody can pull a thread and unravel your whole damn coat.
Yeah, you
So
can't.
you
just
gotta
sit
watch
silent.
what you're doing. Yeah.
You got to sit
That's true.
silent.
It's the world we live in, right? Like we look at professional sport. Like, granted, us in kayak bass fishing, we're not a what's the word that I'm looking for?
Sport.
An entertainment. We're not an entertainment sports organization. In other words, like NBA players, NFL, Major League, they're entertainers. They're athletes that earn money by viewership. So therefore, when things happen, there has to be transparency because the money is coming from viewership, not entry fees. And I think that's a huge difference. When your money is coming in from a viewership, from consumers that are viewing the product, if your product doesn't come across as being genuine or impartial, then you're going to lose viewership and therefore
hey, Monty, I'll tell you this, man. Hobie did do a press release. It was called posting Garrett Morgan as the winner. I mean,
I'm not questioning it.
No,
I'm not questioning
if they'd have done it if they'd have taken Garrett's, if they'd have decided the other direction, let's say, and taken his trophy back, I'm sure they would have put out some sort of statement as to why they did that. Right.
Right.
But they announced that he won, and that was the end of it. That was the end of it. So
it goes back to like it's more of a close-knit community. I get why sports organizations do it, but we can't compare ourselves to that because that's the dynamic of it. When viewership is involved, then you answer to the viewership more than anything else because that's where your money's coming from.
You need to have Adam on one night and talk politics, but have me and him on, and we'll bat some stuff around for you.
Just destroy the podcast once and for all. End it right there.
Oh boy.
Anything else we forgot to cover? Let's go with predictions. Who do you think is going to predict? Because I want to end up with a happier note. Who do you think is going to win the championship?
Well, I can't do that, so y'all go ahead.
Well, you can.
Hey, I've got my hopes. I've got one for just hilarious reasons. I hope Garrett wins. Two, but if I'm guessing, it's Garrett is really good on Lake Fork, but
he is. He won a Bassmaster.
Is Guillermo qualified? Because he is not registered for this. I was looking at the list of who's registered. He's got.
Yeah, he's there. Right? Yeah, he's there.
Maybe
I think he is. I talked to him the other day. Yeah, and he said he is.
My triple threat there is Guillermo, Scotch, and BDH. Those three.
That's
those are the three.
I completely agree. That's my three that I would have. Michael Cates. Can't forget him.
Yeah.
Underdog. I mean, not underdog. Dark horse is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Brian, who do you think might win?
Man, I don't know. Scotch has been kind of quiet on the tournament scene for a little while. I think you might see him jump back out to prove a point. But man, I have to think BDH is. I don't know. I got a feeling, man. I think BDH is going to come out come out swinging. Old daddy got the baby at home. I think he's going to go out and get the big check.
I mean, I love Garrett Morgan, but this is Texas. I want the Texans to win. I don't care if it's Michael. I don't care if it's Scotch. I don't care if it's Guillermo or BDH. It's got to be a Texan for me. I love Garrett Morgan. Don't get me wrong, and he's done quite well at Lake Fork. But I want somebody from Texas to win it.
I used to live in Texas.
Yeah, but he abandoned us. Why is Adam all caps? Adam, are you pissed off? Are you screaming?
Adam, well, he's been probably arguing with somebody over politics on his personal.
Yeah, he didn't take his caps off talking about the continuing resolution over on Facebook and just left it on here. So
Wyatt Hamlin's on Dontrell Sullivan.
That's
Dontrell's gonna get big bass. I think he's gonna get big bass.
Wyatt,
all right, we've switched back to small caps. Thanks, Adam. We were kind of worried about
packing his stuff. He's
packing my stuff.
Adam Fillmore might win the tournament for all we know.
There you go.
Hey, you never know.
Hey, speaking of that,
not betting against him.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, what we forgot to cover? We're going to cover a whole bunch of things.
Brother, I'm about to cover myself up in the bed in a minute.
I don't know, but I did finish my gallon of water, and I'm struggling on this chair right here.
Good job, Jeff.
Pee in that bottle. We can't see it.
Hang on a minute.
We don't have a zoom lens. Don't worry about it. It's done.
Oh, man. Armando throwing all the shade tonight.
Well, boys, thank you so much for taking the time. I've had you for over an hour and 60 minutes, and I don't know what else we can do to make more people upset. So
sorry. I apologize. You won't invite me back.
Well, I just appreciate you not insulting me tonight, Armando. You got these two guys. You get them fight bites on your knuckles there.
He must be trying to get extra inches in the championship or something, Steve. I don't know what's going on.
Heck yeah, man. But hey,
I forgot. Steve, well, no, I'm not gonna say it. Brad Case, great talk. Thank you, Brad Case. Another great angler. Brad is always helping out with the at this series. I always see him on the captain's meeting and all that great.
Yeah, Brad makes life easy.
And and he's working at the native. I've seen him help out with the native bass power hour. So he's everywhere, man. He's a great.
Been Brad's an OG since the beginning.
Steve, what's next for the Bassmaster Kayak Series after the championship? What are we looking for, and where do we go from here as far as
April 26th, 27th? We're at Byrdstown, Tennessee, on Dell Hollow, and it's not going to be cold. It's not going to be snowing. October. Yeah. So Dell Hollow has big largemouth and big smallmouth. That time of year is going to like we fish every year there at Tennessee Bass Nation in December. And there's some big fish caught then, but I mean, it's obviously it's December. It's hard to fish. This should be much better fishing for people. You're going to be able to catch them every kind of way. And then, after that, we're going to 10 Killer, and then we're going to Champlain, and then we'll close out the season on Toledo Bend. And I'll just be honest, I'm going to push them. If I can get this schedule booked in the next month, I want to get them to let me release an event every 2 weeks because next year's schedule, if it plays out, I need 2 more to book and I'll be done. It's going to be pretty killer. So
that'd be the earliest schedule release ever.
The good old days when we used to get the schedule in January. They're gone.
Yeah. I'll beg them. I'll say, please, the grassroots clubs are begging me to get this out. So
Ryan, Jeff, what do you guys? No, I appreciate you, Steve. Ryan, Jeff, what do you guys got going on KBN, and what do you guys next on tournament scene? What are you guys up to this year?
As little as possible. We're we're keeping the KBN going. I think for the entertainment value for the people mostly, to highlight the anglers. I think Jeff and myself are kind of swamped in real life at the moment, so. We're keeping the entertainment side going. I may try to jump in the Team Kayak series. We got a couple events out in the backyard here coming up.
Anybody ask you to partner with them yet? If you're available,
I mean, come on, let's run it.
I'm just saying. Oh, you probably had a dozen people message you.
11. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, man. If Elon and the boys don't doge me by the end of April, I'm going to come to Dale Hollow and fish up there with Steve and the boys on Dale Hollow. I've never been there before, strangely enough, so it'll be my first time up there. So I'm going to fish our local trail this year, which I haven't fished in 3 years. So I'm going to fish with the local guys. They got a little team deal going here locally. That starts this Saturday. Actually, I'm going to fish this Saturday. It's going to be fun.
There you go.
I forgot to ask you, Steve, plug in, when the dates of the actual tournament and when's the winner going to be announced, and if you know about the dates of the activities and where it's going to be. I know it's going to be at Dickies Arena, but anything that you want to plug in, promote, not just from the Bassmaster Kayak Series. I know it's like this is the month where we celebrate bass fishing, right? With the classic and now the Bassmaster Kayak Series is all tied in together. What are the dates going to be for the tournaments and the announcement of the winner?
Practice starts tomorrow. Anglers will practice from Friday to Tuesday. Tuesday, they got to be off the water at 4 p.m. and then they're going to fish Wednesday and Thursday. We've got some high wind stuff that's got us a little bit nervous. The way Bassmaster operates is they drop a day, they don't add a day, so it'll be a 1 day shootout, which I'm not wanting to happen. So as Ryan can attest, I wait to the last minute to make a decision on weather stuff, and it's typically when lightning strikes next to us. But we'll be proactive here, and then so they're going to fish Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday, we'll bring everybody back to the Caney Point Pavilion in Yantis, Texas, and we'll do our little pseudo awards. We'll live stream to Facebook, let the anglers, the top 10, talk. And then Friday, the 21st, we'll be at the Dickies Arena, as you mentioned, in Fort Worth, Texas. The expo, everyone keep in mind, the expo is about 2 miles from Dickies Arena. So there's a shuttle, just like when we were in Anderson, South Carolina. There's a shuttle that'll take you there. I believe
it's not going to be at the cattle barn like the last time.
No, the cattle
Rogers?
barn where we're having not the champions. No, he said, "Thank God." So anyway, 3:45 is when we should take stage. So try to be there at 3:00. They're giving us 30 minutes, like to Lambert and them when they were in Texas last go around. That's actually the reason we get what we get now. Eric Lopez and them have all stepped up, and we get. They open the doors, obviously, to members early, but they give us a half hour to get in and get our seats. So we've had a really good kayak attendance
last year.
The last several years. Yeah, we had a great time, and so and so that's what we're going to do on Friday. Looking forward to possibly next year. I want to do a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday championship, and move our awards to Saturday. We'll have a more packed house that way. Yeah. They're very receptive to that. And I'm working on having 3-day championship. Your Angler of the Year standings will be your top 3 events plus your championship. But since we do let people who fish in from Bass Nation, those points won't count against you. So it'll be your best 3 and your championship finish. And the points will come through people who have fished 3 events themselves as well. So I feel like that's the most fair way to do it. But that's not in stone by any means. But I'm 99% certain in 2026, when we come here to Tennessee, we're going to have a 3-day championship. So sweet. But that's what we'll be. And I'll update all the information. Just got the email today with the little calendar here. So yeah, we're going to see all of y'all at Fort Worth. Come down to Yantis and hang out with us. I think we're going to Neon Moon. So I hate that you boys are going to miss that, but that's where we'll be, is Neon Moon down there having a little shindig. So we'll be certain to send y'all some Snapchats and have a good time with us.
Snapchats, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I got Snapchatted the other night when I buzzed these eyebrows off.
Boy,
Amber did it.
It's going to be MySpace too, or?
Yeah.
Hey, I'd love to get that going.
Boy, I'd like to get back to MySpace and get some of those pictures. I really would. Man, talk about reliving some memories.
Oof.
Hey, speaking of, like, last time the championship, the award ceremony was broadcast, our good friend here, Ryan, was with his cell phone while Jeff Millard was, I guess, at the office at his house, just running point, and Jeff's with this little shaky iPhone doing his best to actually stream it through Facebook.
We tried it, man.
Yeah.
Never again.
Never.
The director's career would take off from that, but
yeah, never again.
Good job.
It'll be on the Bassmaster
real quick,
for real, like
real
for real,
quick
Ryan
question,
and
man.
Jeff. That was awesome, man.
Yeah,
You guys
before
streaming
we
it.
we were trying to bring it to the people, but before we drop, Much like the renaming of Gulf of America. Steve, can you go on and rename
here
the
we go.
championship the Kayak
Oh, you mean the
Classic?
Bassmaster Classic
Can you
Championship?
just name it the Kayak Classic? Can you just
Have
do
I
that?
called it the classic on this spot? I'm trying to fade away from that.
Jeff
I wouldn't be
loves it.
surprised if I did.
Bassmaster Kayak. This year, it's the Yamaha Right Waters Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship.
I know, but
Yeah.
you know, everybody wants to call it
Don
the
Trail, I
classic, you
got
know?
some new shoes. I got some new shoes to wear on stage too. So
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Hey, Ryan, Jeff, are you guys coming for the expo, the classic, or something? When am I going to see you guys in Texas?
I'm volleyballing, dog, till about June.
Yeah.
That's it. That's more important than anything, of course.
Yeah, I gotta send in my 5 bullets. I ain't got time to come down there.
I don't know.
you gotta log in and tell everybody what you're doing every day.
Well, I kind of miss not seeing you guys at tournaments as much as we used to, but it is what it is, right?
Toledo Bend. I'll
Yeah,
be there. I'll be there at
retirement.
Toledo Bend, Armando. Hopefully.
All right. Hopefully see you guys here. What about you, Ryan? Toledo Bend?
I might make Toledo Bend if I need to get my tires cut at a shady pool hall.
Just make sure you make it with 4 wheels this time.
I ain't leaving the house.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll let you guys go. Again, thank you for taking the time, Steve-O. I'll see you
Appreciate y'all.
at the expo or the classic. And guys, Ryan, lunch money, and Jeff, hope to see you guys soon. And you're always welcome to come up to the podcast.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, bud.
All right. See y'all later.
All right,
Thank
I'll
y'all
let you
so
guys
much.
go, and then I'm going to close this out. Thank you so much for this fine gentleman for joining us on the podcast. It's amazing to have them and great conversations. We laughed. We had good insight on a bunch of stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, if you're going to be on the water, please wear your PFDs. You can follow us on social media, Bass Kayak and Beers, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We do a live show every Thursday at 7:30 Central. We also have the Advanced Kayak Angler hosted by Kurt Smith. Those episodes, generally, we try to get them out on Wednesday morning. And those are more geared to sharing tips, tricks, and techniques to help you catch more fish. I know that rhymes. I didn't mean it to rhyme, but it did. So, again, thank you for tuning in. Hope you all have a great evening and enjoy water if you're going to be on the water. Again, wear your PFDs. Good night, y'all.